Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Garadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gaur Premanande Haribol. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Gopi Janda Ballabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janda Ballabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Gaura Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Let's look at the verses after Shriya Kanta Kanta in Sanskrit. Means starts Ato Vacha Mahavishnur Bhagavantam Prajapatim Brahman Mahatva Vignani Prajasargit Chinmati Pancha Shlokim Imam Vidyam Vatsatapvam Niboda Me Prabhure Jnana Bhaktivyam Atmayananda Chinmayi Udaityanutama Bhaktir. Okay, back. Ato Vacha Mahavishnur Bhagavantam Prajapatim Brahman Mahatva Vignane Praja Sarge Chinmatihi Pancha Shlokim Imam Vidyam Vatsatatvam Niboda Me Prabhudev Jnana Bhaktivyam Atmayananda Chinmayi Udaitunitama Bhaktir Bhagavat Prema Lakshana Pramanais Tatsaracharais Tarabhyaser Narantaram Bodhayanatmanatmanam Bhaktimapyutamam Labed Yasya Shreyas Nasti Yaya Nivritum Apnuyat Yasareyatimameva Bhaktim Tameva Sadayed Dharmananyan Parityaja Mamekam Bhaja Vishwasan Yadrishi Shraddha Sadhir Bhavati Tadrishi Kurvan Nirantaram Karma Loko Yam Manuvartate Tenaiva Karmana Dhyayan Mam Param Bhaktimicchati Aham Hi Vishwasya Characharasya Bijam Pradhanam Prakriti Pumanscha Maya Hitam Teja Idam Bibarshi Vidhe Videhi Twamato Jaganti. And now the English for that section. The microphones are out and ready to go? Yes.
Text 56, right? containing the essence of the truth, the Supreme Lord Krishna said to Brahma, Brahma, if you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved, from me to this sign set forth in the following 5 shlokas. When the pure spiritual experience is excited by means of cognition and service, bhakti, super excellent unalloyed devotion characterized by the love for Godhead, is awakened towards Krishna, the beloved of all souls. The highest devotion is attained by slow degrees, by the method of constant endeavor for self-realization with the help of scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. These preliminary practices of devotion, sadhana bhakti, are conducive to the realization of loving devotion. Loving devotion, than whom there is no superior well-being, who goes hand in hand with the attainment of the exclusive state of supreme bliss, who can lead to myself.
And who can lead to myself.
And who could lead to myself. Who can lead to myself. Abandoning all meritorious performances, serve me with faith. The realization which correspond to the nature of one's faith. The people of the world act ceaselessly in pursuance of some ideal. By meditating on me, by means of those deeds, one will obtain devotion characterized by love in the shape of supreme service. Listen, O Vidhi, I am the seed, that is, the fundamental principle of this world of animate and inanimate objects. I am Pradhana, the substance of matter. I am Prakriti, material cause, and I am Purusha, efficient cause. This fiery energy that belongs specially to the Brahman, that inheres in you, has also been conferred by me. It is by bearing this fiery energy that you regulate this phenomenal world of animate and inanimate objects.
Now let's see the purport starting with the first one. First one in that group. Tovacha Mahavishnur Bhagavantam Prajapatim Brahman Mahatva Vignane Prajasarge Chichinmati Pancha Shlokim Imam Vidyam Vatsatatvam Nibodame. Vatsatatvam. Why does he call him Vatsa? Krishna speaking to Brahma calls him Vatsa. Why? Yeah, it's a very sweet relationship. It's a beautiful verse. You're almost there. Keep going. Good. On hearing these hymns containing the essence of the truth, the Supreme Lord Krishna said to Brahma, Brahma, if you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with the real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved Vatsa, from me to this science set forth in the following 5 shlokas. Let's look at the word for word. Back. Good. Ata, then. Uvacha, said. Mahavishnu, Supreme Lord. Bhagavantam, unto the glorious. Prajapatim, Lord Brahma. Brahman, O Brahma. Mahatva, of the glory of Godhead. Vignane, in real knowledge. Prajasarage, in creating offspring. Cha, and. Chet, if. Mati, the inclination. Pancha Shlokim, 5 shlokas. Imam, this. Vidyam, science. Vatsa, O beloved. Datam, given. Nibodha, hear. Me, from me. On hearing these hymns containing the essence of the truth, the Supreme Lord Krishna said to Brahma, Brahma, if you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with the real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved, from me to this science set forth in the following 5 shlokas. Purport. The Supreme Lord became propitious when Brahma, look it up. It's our new word for today. At least one of them. The Supreme Lord became propitious when Brahma, with great eagerness, chanted the names Krishna and Govinda, expressive of the form, attribute, and pastimes.
Propitious, giving or indicating a good chance of success, favorable.
Sentence etymology.
The timing for such a meeting seemed propitious.
Propitious. Propitious.
Propitious.
This again.
The timing for such a meeting seemed propitious.
And the meaning again?
Giving or indicating a good chance of success, favorable.
And where does it come from?
It comes to us through Middle English from... It's loading. Wait.
Propitious. 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 Propitious.
Favorably disposed. Being a good omen. Tending to favor. Propitiously. Propitiousness. Now is a propitious time to start a business. The success of the first big movie in May was a propitious start for the summer season of blockbusters. Middle English, propitious, from Anglo-French propitious, from Latin propitious, probably from pro, for, plus petere, to seek. Synonyms are auspicious, bright, encouraging, fair, golden, heartening, likely, optimistic, promising, hopeful, roseate, I don't know, rose-colored, rosy, upbeat. Antonyms are bleak, dark, depressing, desperate, discouraging, disheartening, dismal, downbeat, dreary, gloomy, hopeless, inauspicious, pessimistic, unencouraging, unlikely, unpromising, unpropitious. Use propitious in a sentence.
Krishna was propitious to Arjuna.
Was propitious.
When Bhishma passed away, it was a propitious time. Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Every moment in the loving service of Krishna is propitious.
The early morning time is propitious for our devotional service.
If we propitiously serve Krishna, he really turns back, takes care of us.
This is a propitious place for practicing devotional service.
Wherever Maharaj is, it is always propitious.
By giving instructions to Arjuna, Lord Krishna made whole world propitious.
The fact that we sold 1,000 Gitas yesterday is a propitious start to the Christmas marathon. Hare Krishna. Okay, so the Supreme Lord became propitious when Brahma, with great eagerness, chanted the names Krishna and Govinda, expressive of the form, attribute, and pastimes. So somebody comment on that first sentence, because it's a beautiful sentence. You two start. What do you notice about the sentence? The Supreme Lord became propitious, which means what? Favorable. When Brahma, with great eagerness, chanted the names Krishna and Govinda, expressive of the form, attribute, and pastimes. What do you observe about that sentence? I think it's propitious for us, because we're also chanting Krishna and Govinda. Just the fact that he becomes favorable towards somebody who chants his names. Brahma, with great eagerness, chanted the names Krishna and Govinda. So that's why the Lord became propitious toward him. That's propitious for us, isn't it? Any comments?
That's Govinda means the one who's give pleasure to cow and senses. So Brahma reminded him Krishna all his favorite devotees and his favorite pastimes by cows, and that is one thing to attract Krishna's attention.
Yes. Yes.
Also, that's the proof that Supreme Lord is a person, and he becomes pleased when somebody's calling him
Yes.
or talking about him.
Yes. So if Brahma chanted those prayers with great eagerness, and he attracted Krishna's attention, right? So what if we chant Brahma's prayers with great eagerness and attention? What'll happen then? What'll happen then?
Krishna will be propitious to us.
That's right. You say.
Krishna will become propitious towards us.
Yes. Is propitious start to one's day. Second line in the purport. Brahma was actuated by the desire for mundane creation. Actuated. Actuated.
Actuate.
Go ahead.
So, actuate is to put into mechanical action or motion, to move to action.
Where does it come from?
It's still loading.
Comes from Latin, actus, which means to act. Synonyms are activate, crank up, drive, move, run, set off, spark, touch off, trigger, turn on. Actuate.
Actuate.
Brahma was actuated by the desire for mundane creation. Krishna then said to Brahma how pure unalloyed devotion can be practiced by souls engaged in worldly occupations by combining the same with the desire for carrying out the behest of the Supreme Lord. Behest. Behest.
Behest.
Behest is a command or directive, or an earnest or strongly worded request.
An authoritative order, an urgent prompting. Go ahead.
No, it's from Middle English and Old English.
Old English. Bihas, promise, from bihatan to promise, from bi plus hatan to command promise. Command, charge, commandment, decree. Brahma was actuated by the desire for mundane creation. Krishna then said to Brahma how pure unalloyed devotion can be practiced by souls engaged in worldly occupations by combining the same with the desire for carrying out the behest of the Supreme Lord. I have a question. And that is, can someone who's engaged in worldly occupations become Krishna conscious? Can they attain pure unalloyed devotion? Somebody who's engaged in worldly occupations. If you say yes, then please be prepared to back up your answer with this, using this sentence that we just read. Who says yes? Some half yes, like this. Shamalingi said yes. Support your answer, please.
By simultaneously practicing Krishna consciousness, one can attain pure devotional service.
What about the behest of the Lord?
Yes, and following the instructions of the behest of the Lord.
Can one actuate one's devotional practice even amidst a worldly occupation?
Yes.
How?
By following the instruction of
By following the behest of the Lord. Will that propitiate an auspicious life?
Yes.
Okay. Krishna then said to Brahma how pure unalloyed devotion can be practiced by souls engaged in worldly occupations by combining the same with the desire for carrying out the behest of the Lord. Quote, the knowledge absolute is knowledge of the glory of Godhead. If you want to procreate offspring, being endowed with such knowledge, listen attentively to the science of devotion that is contained in the following 5 shlokas. How bhakti is practiced by performing worldly duties in the form of carrying out the commands of the Supreme Lord is being described. Next verse. Makes you want to read the 5, doesn't it? Yes. Prabhude jnana bhaktivyam. Prabhude, when excited. Jnana, by cognition or knowledge. Bhaktivyam, and by devotional service. Atmani, in the pure spirit soul. Ananda chitmayi, full of knowledge and bliss. Udeti, is awakened. Anuttama, super excellent. Bhakti, devotion. Bhagavat, for Krishna. Prema, by love. Lakshana. What does prabhude mean? When excited, yes. And what is it speaking about in that verse? Prabhude, what is excited? Prabhude jnana bhaktivim atmayananda chinmayi. What is being excited and what does it mean by excited? Use the microphone.
Bhakti.
Yes. And how is it excited according to these lines?
By cognition or knowledge.
Okay, jnana and
by devotional service in the pure spirit soul.
Okay, so atma ananda chinmayi chitmayi, full knowledge and bliss, udeti, is awakened when excited by jnana and bhaktivyam. So prabhude jnana bhaktivyam atmayananda chinmayi. Translation, please. When the pure spiritual existence is excited, word. What word for excited? Prabhude. By means of cognition, word. Jnana. And service, bhakti. Bhaktivyam. Super excellent, unalloyed devotion characterized by love for Godhead is awakened. Word for awakened? Udeti. Udeti. Towards Krishna, the beloved of all souls. Look at the Sanskrit again. Word for word. Prabhude, when excited. Jnana, by cognition or knowledge. Bhaktivyam, and by devotional service. Atmani, in the pure spirit soul. Ananda Chitmayi, full of knowledge and bliss. Udeti, is awakened. Anuttama, super excellent. Bhakti, devotion. Bhagavat, for Krishna. Prema, by love. Lakshana, characterize. So, what is the word lakshana referring to in this verse? Characteristics of pure devotion. And what are the characteristics? Yeah, say.
Anuttama bhakti.
Yes. So translation again. Translation again. When the pure spiritual experience is excited by means of cognition and bhakti, so it's telling how one awakens this bhakti. By gyan and by practice of bhakti. You have to have sambandha gyan. You have to hear from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, about one's relationship with the Supreme Lord and one's non-relationship with the material world. And then, super excellent unalloyed devotion characterized, and it tells what the characteristic of love for Godhead, characterized by love of Godhead, prema, is awakened toward Krishna, the beloved of all souls. Purport. Real knowledge is nothing but knowledge of one's relationship to the Absolute. Real knowledge is identical with the knowledge of subjective natures of Chit, animate, Achit, inanimate, and Krishna, and of their mutual relationship. Here, mental speculation is not alluded to, since that is antagonistic to service, bhakti. The knowledge that embraces only the first 7 of the 10 basic principles, dashamula, is the knowledge of relationship. The substantive nature of the spiritual function, abhideya, inculcated by the science of devotion, hearing, chanting, meditation, tending his holy feet, worshipping by rituals, making prostrations, doing menial service, practicing friendship, and surrendering oneself are identical with practicing the search for Krishna. It is specifically described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Devotion, bhakti, characterized by love for Godhead, makes her appearance by being awakened by such knowledge and practice. Such devotion is super excellent bhakti, and no other than the final object of attainment of all spiritual endeavor of the individual soul, jiva. So we're practicing that kind of bhakti. We're getting knowledge of our relationship, and we're also performing the various recommended means of pleasing Krishna through direct devotional practices, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, etc. And the word inculcated means?
Inculcate means to teach and impress by frequent repetitions. And it's from Latin, and it comes from a verb that is inculcare, meaning to tread on.
Inculcate.
Which means what?
The Latin verb or the?
Yeah, Latin.
It comes from inculcare, which means to tread on.
And it says here, inculcare, to trample. From kalk, heel, like the heel of the foot. And use in a sentence, please. To teach or impress by frequent repetitions or admonitions. Inculcate, say. Say it. Inculcate. Sentence, please. From our gallery of pundits. Inculcate. You can read it or say it. Either way.
It's to instill an attitude repetition.
Someone?
You can inculcate bhakti in others by your daily service, by your performance of bhakti. You can inculcate in others as well.
By example? Okay.
Krishna inculcated.
That's right. It's going to be on the test, so you better write it down. Go ahead.
Krishna inculcated the science of devotional service to Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra.
And thus inculcated the world with Krishna knowledge of himself. Nice. So what words did we get today? Tell us what we won. Name the different words we got.
Inculcate, propitious, actuate, and behest.
Same again.
Propitious, actuate, behest, and inculcate.
And tell what each one means just in one or two words.
Behest is the order. Propitious is like auspicious or like favorable. Inculcate is learning by like repetition. And then, what's the last word? Actuate is... Oh yeah.
Set something in motion. Now you say the four. The four words and the meanings, yeah.
Okay. Propitious means
Propitious.
favorable. Propitious means favorable or auspicious, and
Inculcate.
Inculcate means to set motion, or no, learning by repetition.
Yes.
Behest means to a command or instructions.
Yes.
Actuate means to set motion.
Perfect. Okay, good. They'll all be on the test. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim sarasatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. I'm reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Oh, who's the fastest typer in the room? Who can type faster than anybody? Seriously? You do? Never volunteer for typing. They teach you that in the military. Do you know how to use a Mac? This is the propitious beginning to your typing career. Put it in some place where it's easy for you to do. As much as possible. Abbreviate if you have to. We'll fix it later. So today, we'll look at the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We come into the 5th canto after hearing about King Prachinabarhi, who was engaged in materialistic activities by performing ritualistic sacrifices that included killing animals in order to elevate himself in the material world. This kind of information is available in the Vedas. Narada Muni came to him, and in order to teach him, how's it going? He instructed him indirectly. So today I'm talking about various ways in which one can instruct others in Krishna consciousness. Various, as some people say, preaching techniques. So we already heard, and we've discussed in the class previously, the ways in which various elevated personalities instruct Krishna consciousness to others. There's not one way only. Oftentimes people think, well, you just have to be very direct and just say everything. But Prabhupada mentions in the 1st canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that realization means that one should understand the material and then should represent it in such a way that fits the context of those to whom one is teaching, so that they can understand it. So, as Narada Muni was teaching Prachinabhari, he understood that because Prachinabhari was materialistically oriented, if he was too abrupt, then Prachinabhari might have become discouraged or angry. So he instead gave him an allegory, which is really about King Prachinabhari. But this is one of the ways in which someone can teach somebody else without offending or giving the person a chance to absorb the information and then realize for him or herself that it's about, that he or she is the subject of the teaching. So, did it work? Yes, very well. Prachinabhari was able to suspend his resistance because he was hearing about someone else. But because the story was parallel with his own life, he was then able to absorb the various instructions that he was getting from Narada Muni. So this is one of the ways in which one can teach Krishna consciousness to others without turning off their brains to the instruction that's being given. And teaching, for instance, those who are very much absorbed in the corporate world, one might develop an allegory about somebody else in the corporate world and tell the story without directly saying, oh, you are doing these kinds of things. Let them draw their own conclusion. So that is a technique that Narada Muni uses frequently, we'll find throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. But we saw King Prachinabhari, after hearing Narada's instructions and clarifying some of the things he said, Narada then went through the allegory after King Prachinabhari realized that the story of Puranjana was about him. And he gave him details about the instructions. King Prachinabhari was then able to renounce the world. This is very powerful because when one gets correct information about one's relationship with the material world and it begins to make sense, one develops one's own impetus for turning towards spiritual life. And one feels confident in progressively neglecting one's material duties, understanding what the highest prospect in life is. So that happened with King Prachinabhari, and there are many stories up to the 4th canto in which we hear of those who were attached to the material world gave it up. Great kings walked away from their kingdoms. Maharaj Anga is another example that comes in the 4th canto, the Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, he was in a very difficult situation because his son turned out to be a bad seed. There was some bad blood that entered into his son because on his mother's side, he was begotten by death personified. So he had some relatives in his lineage that weren't exactly propitious. So the end result of Maharaj Anga's having this bad son, Vena, was that he eventually became discouraged. Although in the beginning he was very eager to have a son, and he had Vena, he saw that Vena was not teachable. And eventually Anga became so discouraged with material life that he, in the middle of the night, just walked away. So we're hearing about various kings that have everything. And at the time of the Bhagavatam, at the time these stories are spoken, people relate any kind of material happiness with being a king, because a king has everything. But then again and again we hear a king has everything, but then king's not happy. This begins to form a pattern, and we can understand that there must be another way to be happy, or at least one should avoid thinking that just because one's a king, which means that I have full facility for material happiness, that I'll be satisfied. Now we hear a similar story. It starts off with Maharaj Priyavrata, who's a prince. He's the son of Swayambhuva Manu. And his guru is Narada Muni. They're sitting in a beautiful setting with no distractions. And Narada is giving his full attention to his disciple, Priyavrata, who is a star disciple. As we'll find out later, there's nobody like Priyavrata anywhere in the Bhagavatam. After all, he created a second sun. He also, with his chariot wheels, was able to develop oceans. It's inconceivable, the kinds of personalities that are being spoken of in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Priyavrata was inclined towards renunciation, and then, because at the beginning of the universe there was a great need for leadership and also those who would propagate and increase the population, his father Swayambhuva asked him to become a grihastha. And Priyavrata was not at all inclined. After all, why should he be? He had no desire to become a grihastha. He also had the full support of his guru, Narada Muni, who said, no, you should renounce the world. So what did Swayambhuva Manu do? Well, he joined together with Brahma, who's the grandfather of Priyavrata. And Brahma came to speak personally to Priyavrata. So there's a couple of lessons that I want to bring out, and there's some very profound points that Prabhupada makes throughout his purports in these sections. So let's go into them. What do you think? Okay. So we just heard a verse from the Sri Brahma Samhita and a purport by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Then if one follows the behest of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then even though that person may be engaged in ordinary mundane activities, that person can also come to the perfection of life by engaging in Krishna consciousness simultaneously along with those activities. Does that sound propitious? So how is it possible for Priyavrata to have achieved the topmost perfection in Krishna consciousness? Even though, and I'll just jump forward a little bit, he gives up his position of renunciation and takes to grihastha life. It's seemingly against the orders of his spiritual master, but we'll find out more about that as well, and his own desire. Why? Why did he do that? We heard about many kings that renounced everything, and this was the propitious ending to the various stories that we heard in the 4th canto. Now in the 5th canto we hear about a prince who wants to renounce the world and is prepared to do so. He's also qualified to do so. Now he's getting advice that he should become a grihastha and embrace materialistic life. So how did that happen? So Shukadeva Goswami says, sometimes great devotees and liberated persons are checked by some impediment, but they still never give up their exalted positions. This is one of the great lessons in this first section of the 5th canto that we're being taught by Shukadeva Goswami in hearing this story. There's no impediment to pure devotional service. There's no circumstance under which one can say that I can't perform my devotional service now because of blank. What's the blank? Because I'm too busy. Actually, the way in which we divide up our time and use it in 24 hours is our personal choice. Agree or not? Unless one accepts that, then one's simply driven by one's destiny, and there's nothing you can really do to improve yourself materially or spiritually if you accept the philosophy that I have no choice. I have no say over how I use my time. However, it's really taste not time that dictates what we do in our life. And if we decide that we want to go a different direction, we can also always apportion our time in a different way. At least we can make that intention and we can begin working towards that and gradually fill up our time in the way that we want to. So it's not time, it's taste. And what are the other blanks? I can't do devotional service because, yes? Because of school. Anything else? Yes? I'm incapable. First of all, Prahlad Maharaj went to school and he seemed to have kept his Krishna consciousness going. Of course, he showed by example that even while he was in school, he taught his schoolmates about Krishna consciousness. And incapability is not accepted by Srila Vyasadeva, who says in the Vedanta Sutra that every living entity is capable of becoming advanced in devotional service. Otherwise, there wouldn't be instructions given in the Shastra, because those instructions are meant for us, and the Shastras don't say anything illogical. So if there were some souls that couldn't become elevated, it would be a little illogical for the Shastra to say, become elevated. The many, many different excuses that one might use, but after all, one should understand that these are excuses. Someone might say, well, I don't like the way somebody treated me. For instance, I could be in an organization, spiritual organization like ISKCON, and I can say, somebody mistreated me. Is that possible? And then say, therefore, I can't practice devotional service. So these are not valid, because there's a way in which it's our own prerogative to perform devotional service under any circumstance. And the story is showing that whether one is situated in the forest or one is situated in an opulent setting in a home or a palace, one can still perform pure devotional service. Who said that in a poem? Who? What did he say? Grihe tako bane tako shadahari bole dako sukhe dukhe bhulo nako varane harinam gorore amgai gora madhusvare. Said whether you live in the forest or where you live at home, you can become Krishna conscious. You just have to keep the vibration of the holy name going. Sadahari bolidako. So this is one of the great lessons of this story. Yes, Vijay Damodar? We have more excuses? There's a list somewhere.
One common excuse actually I encountered yesterday, and then in general we also see that in book distribution, is people say, it's not coming from within me, let it come from within me and then I will agree to. So what's a good response for that one?
Yeah, it's not coming, I'm not feeling it. So you stay and suffer in the material world, and later on you might feel it. What can be done? But even, if somebody's insincere, they can come up with all kinds of reasons why they don't want to do devotional service. For those who are sincere, excuses are not an option, because there's a way in which those excuses, they don't look well. It doesn't look well to use excuses. We're advised to not give excuses for our shortcoming in devotional service, and to accept our shortcomings and to move forward from the position we're in now, and not consider externals as the cause for my inability to move forward. One should accept that I have limitations, but those can all be overcome through the sincere practice of devotional service, even if one's incompetent in the very beginning in practicing devotional service. Prabhupada mentions this in 331 in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says that even if somebody can't enact all the rules and regulations of devotional service, if he sincerely tries and believes in the principle that it's possible to advance in devotional service, doesn't become resentful of the fact that he's waylaid by his internal state, that person will come to the perfectional stage. However, somebody who denies Krishna or who makes excuses will not be able to advance in devotional service. That's the meaning of tate anukampam susamikshamano bunjani vatma kritam vipaka, means that the person accepts full responsibility for whatever mistakes he or she has made in the past and takes shelter of Krishna for his or her advancement. You doing okay over there? Do you need something more substantial than... Can somebody get her like a little table or something? You want to sit in a chair? She's a stenographer. Get her a nice table and a chair. Make sure she's comfortable. Because she's typing like the blazing wind. And if you need a tag team, if you have somebody else who's competent, you can pass it. I've seen this done. What's this? Nanda Tirtha and his wife do this sometimes in classes. They pass back and forth. What's his wife's name? You know Nanda Tirtha? Radhanath Maharaj's disciples. He's in Mayapur. Is that better? Better for a stenographer. Okay, so looking at verse 516. This verse says, Shukadev Goswami continued, "My dear king, Prince Priyavrata was a great devotee because he sought the lotus feet of Narada, his spiritual master, and thus achieved the highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. With advanced knowledge, he always engaged in discussing spiritual subjects and did not divert his attention to anyone else." With verses like this, you can just note that that's the verse, and then you don't have to write every word in it. So that's verse 5116. This is just the translation. The prince's father then asked him to take charge of ruling the world. He tried to convince Priyavrata that this was his duty as indicated in the revealed scriptures. Prince Priyavrata, however, was continuously practicing bhakti yoga by constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thus engaging all his senses in the service of the Lord. Therefore, although the order of his father could not be rejected, the prince did not welcome it. Thus, he very conscientiously raised the question of whether he might be diverted from devotional service by accepting the responsibility of ruling over the world. So I want to point out something from this verse, and that is that although Priyavrata didn't agree with what was being offered to him by his superiors, he objected, but he did so conscientiously. So this is very important. When dealing with superiors, one should be conscientious even if one doubts what they are telling you. There's an etiquette that protects one from making offenses. We may not understand why I'm getting a particular instruction, but one should maintain the etiquette in those situations, as he is here. He's conscientiously raising the doubt about why you're asking me to do this. So it's okay to ask. It's okay to clarify. Even Arjuna at Kurukshetra clarified with Krishna, who was telling him, "Oh, you go and fight." And he's like, "Are you sure? Why? You're giving me various instructions. I don't understand them all. Please clarify everything so that I can understand." But he did so very respectfully and conscientiously. So then we come to verse number 7, 517. And in this verse, we find one of the ways in which one may teach Krishna consciousness to others very effectively. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued, "The first created being and most powerful demigod in this universe is Lord Brahma, who is always responsible for developing universal affairs. Born directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he dedicates his activities to the welfare of the entire universe. For he knows the purpose of the universal creation. This supremely powerful, Lord Brahma, accompanied by his associates and the personified Vedas, left his own abode in the highest planetary system and descended to the place of Prince Priyavrata's meditation. So here we're setting the scene. There's a beautiful picture of this in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in which Brahma is descending to the hill on which Priyavrata and Narada are sitting and engaged in Krishna Katha. And he's coming with this news that we want you to become the new temple president. Or to take up this grave responsibility, which means really walking away from this pristine lifestyle and coming into another realm. So one of the ways in which one can very effectively teach somebody or inform somebody in a way that he or she can accept it is to bring one's entourage. We see that. This is what Brahma's doing. Now, who did he come with? That's pretty convincing. When you see Brahma come, and there are others with him also, but he's there with the personified Vedas, and there are other great personalities. This is one of the ways in which, if you want to impress a point upon somebody, to preach Krishna consciousness, bring some big people with you. So there's don't go alone. Bring others. This will create an environment in which the person may more readily accept. There's a story in which when Tamal Krishna Maharaj was Prabhupada's secretary, he had misplaced one of Prabhupada's keys to his armoire. Prabhupada was meticulous about taking care of his property because he considered it Krishna's property and he was using it in Krishna's service. So when he would travel, he had a bag, and in the bag would lock, and then the locked bag would be locked within the armoire, so that his service wasn't interrupted, and so someone didn't make the offense of stealing something from him. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was his secretary at the time, misplaced the key. And so Prabhupada, impressing upon him the gravity of the situation, said, "Call the GBC." Meant call all the GBCs. He didn't actually bring them all together, but he said, call all the GBCs and have them come. We're going to talk about this. In another circumstance, this, of course, it was resolved, the idea of the key. I think he found it, and then Prabhupada taught him how to tie it on his Brahman's thread, which was utilitarian. But Prabhupada had been very concerned with producing the entire Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially before this Professor Dimmock in Chicago produced his, because Professor Dimmock had very erroneous things to say about the six Goswamis and about the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this would be the first presentation of Chaitanya Charitamrita in English. And nothing can inspire an author more than some competing author, especially one that's not authorized, coming out with something before you come out with yours, because then your thunder is really stolen. So Prabhupada, for many reasons, but that was one of them. Obviously, he was very urgently producing his books because he didn't know how long he had in the world. That was another reason. And out of compassion for everyone in the world, he wanted him to have Chaitanya Charitamrita. But this loomed, that this other professor, or this professor, was going to put out an erroneous version of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Prabhupada went to Los Angeles, and he asked all of the other GBCs to come there. He had it in mind that he was going to make a proclamation there to the head of the GBC, and that was he wanted all of his Chaitanya Charitamritas produced within 2 months. At the time, the only thing that was physically possible, according to the protocol they had developed and all the highest technology tools they had acquired, was to produce one book every 2 months, and Prabhupada wanted all 17 volumes in 2 months. not a book every 2 months. So this seemed impossible. But in order to give this instruction, Prabhupada had called all the GBCs from around the world to be there at the same time. And he gave the instruction on Venice Beach during one of his morning walks to the head of the then head of the BVT in Los Angeles, Rameshwar Prabhu. And Rameshwar Prabhu recounts how all these other leaders were standing around when Prabhupada gave the order, and Rameshwar said, "That's impossible, Prabhupada." And Prabhupada said, "Impossible is a word used in a fool's dictionary." He wasn't going to accept that. He wanted it no matter what. And Rameshwar recounts that he saw all of the other senior devotees standing there, hearing the instruction that he was given, and his interpretation of their expressions was, "I'm glad I'm not you right now." In any case, Prabhupada used this to orchestrate the gravity of the situation, that it was not just some one-off order, but he called the entire body of the GBC to be there in one place in Los Angeles. That was a big endeavor to get everyone to come there. And later, while he was in the temple room, he sat down for Bhagavatam class and he gave this instruction that has been repeated many, many times about printing books, that he wanted everyone to focus on book distribution. He said, by doing so, the movement would automatically increase. Print as many books in as many languages and distribute throughout the whole world. All the GBC were present for that as well. It was at the same time as he gave the order for the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So one of the ways in which one can bring a point home or teach something very impressively is to bring together all of those who are concerned with making it happen, or at least great personalities, so they're all there at the same time. So one should arrange the environment in such a way that the point can go deeply within the heart of the person who's meant to receive it. This is one of the instructions from this section of the Bhagavatam. And another lesson from this particular section is that we'll find in 5.110. But before I go on to this next point, and I'll just give you a preview of the next point, is that Brahma, when teaching and asking for this unusual move by Priyavrata, was acting according to authority. And this is the other way in which one preaches or teaches Krishna consciousness effectively, is by making very sure that one's message is lined up with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra before teaching it. But before I do that, we'll take any reflections from the first few points that I made. Yes.
Maharaj, the last point you mentioned about how bring all the leaders together. So I see even in corporate world that we have like different geography, location, all the teams, and maybe like China, Israel, this. But then every year at least 2 or 3 times, like our head of the department, he'll call all the people on site here, like millions and so many dollars spent, and bring them together in one place to have that on-site meeting.
Okay, so it's done in the corporate world also. When you want to really make some big points, bring everybody in one place. Bring all the demigods in, and the personified Vedas and everyone, and then make the point in a rarefied setting so that it's impressed upon the listeners. What else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was thinking on when you talked about how Narad Muni explained an allegory to King Pratinabhari. Maybe we could also do the same thing in book distribution.
Yes, I've done that before when people say that I don't have time right now, I'll come back later. And I say, that's fine. But I just want to tell you one story before you go. Once there was a bee, and it flew into a beautiful garden of lotus flowers. And it picked the sweetest of all lotuses to alight upon, and it lingered there all day long. And when night was approaching, a sage came through the forest and spoke to the bee and said, you should come out, because at night the lotuses close and you'll be trapped inside. And the bee said, later, because I figured it out. I'll come out tomorrow when the sun comes up and the lotus flower opens. And the sage went away warning the bee again and again, you should do it now. So that night, when the bee went to sleep inside the lotus and was enjoying the beautiful fragrance and sleeping, a maddened elephant came to the forest and gathered up all the lotus flowers and ate them. So I tell this story to people, say, I'll do it later. There was a couple of fellows at Hayden-Ashbury. They seemed slightly intoxicated. And they said, oh, come back later. So I told them the story. And after I told them, they said, whoa. Okay, we'll take it. So yes, we can use an allegory. If you just say to them, no, you should do it now because you don't know what's going to happen in the future, then they might be just ruffled by your abruptness and think, why are you telling me what to do? But if you tell a story about somebody else, an allegory, and you can come up with various allegories to tell, then it's indirect, just as Narada Muni did. Yes?
Maharaj, I also like the point where you said that we shouldn't be too direct because they could take it in a offensive manner.
Yes, that's right. Indirect. Parokshavad. What else? Other points?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One particular thing that I was able to relate was your point about for those who are sincere in devotional services, excuses are not possible. I remember last Sunday we also talked about a tagline. The main thing is to keep the main thing, right? So I was thinking, like, you pick any devotional service, whether it's be chanting or serving, right? And if excuses creep in the form of procrastination or anything like that, right, then that's not acceptable. As long as your body permits, you should push yourself.
Yeah, it's an austerity not to take on excuses. It's an austerity to accept one's lot in life to be from one's own activities in the past and present, and not to blame others. And if one can do that, then one gets a foundation on which one can then make advancement in any discipline, but especially Krishna consciousness. And our very way of approaching our own insufficiencies will determine how well we can overcome them. Otherwise, if we give excuses, we, as is said in the self-help movement, we give away our power to others and say they have the power over me, I can't do anything about it. What else? 1, 2.
I like the point how we can inculcate into others the service attitude. Moreover, if you do it with great love and happiness, you'll feel people get encouraged. People feel that, okay, there is some happiness and they also get encouraged.
Did I mention that?
No, I'm
going to mention it, but I haven't.
I was referring to the inculcate word that we learned today.
Okay. I see. How to inculcate. And really that's what we're talking about today, ways in which to inculcate Krishna consciousness to others. So you're saying with an enthusiastic, happy attitude.
Yes.
We'll come to that in a minute also within the story. Malini?
Puji, I really like the point where you said that it's really the taste, not the time.
Yes.
And I recently, whenever we go on book distribution, when we say, there's 18 books, they think, I don't have the time. And then we tell them it's very simple. You just read one story every night
just a translation, and they seem to be like finding it very difficult. They say they don't have time, but then later I realized that because of the taste, that's where they find it difficult.
Yeah, because if you had even an inkling of taste for a book, you would say, okay, I'll take it, even though I know I can't read it. I know there's something good in it, and I'll read it later. But this idea that I just don't have time is another kind of an excuse, yes. It's taste, not time. When you have taste, you always figure out a way to do something, even though you don't have time. You know, people all the time figure out how to do sinful activities, even though they don't have time in their life, but they do it anyway. Yes?
Smara, just to expand on Malini Mataji's point about the taste, yesterday we invited our guest, my friend Saurabh. His parents was visiting from Jaipur last time when they came here, so he almost finished, I think, 6 canto of Bhagavatam in Hindi, like in 4 weeks, somewhere around that. He reads almost like 500 pages. And then when he came this time, he said, you know what, this visit here was only excuse because their daughter was born, but it was the Bhagavatam which was calling him to finish all that. So he just finished all of it like again, and now Ramayana, now he's looking into next. So I think I was really motivated by his presence yesterday, when the taste which he has for the Bhagavatam to read.
Yeah, and that's the most valuable thing that we can acquire, is this kind of taste, eagerness. Krishna bhakti ras bhavito mati kritam yadi kritopi labhyate tatalolyam atamulyam ekalam janmakoti sukritirna labhyate. Rupa Goswami says that lalyam, or this greed or taste, is what we need in order to advance in devotional service. And the mood of that is, if Krishna consciousness is available anywhere, then I'll run to get it. Don't wait. Get it as soon as possible. Not, oh, we don't have time. I'll do it some other time. Okay, so in this next section we find in 5.1.10. My dear Parikshit, because Lord Brahma had finally descended from Satyaloka to Bhuloka, Narada Muni, Prince Priyavrata, and Swayambhu Vamana came forward to offer him objects of worship and to praise him in highly qualified language according to Vedic etiquette. At that time, Lord Brahma, the original person of the universe, felt compassion for Priyavrata, and looking upon him with a smiling face, he spoke as follows. So this is another way in which, Surikun Prabhu brought it out, that when one's presenting Krishna consciousness, if one has a pleasing attitude or countenance, as Brahma does in this circumstance, and we'll hear the purport. That Lord Brahma descended from Satyaloka to see a Priyavrata indicates that the matter was very serious. So this is another point about inculcating Krishna consciousness to others. If you really want to make the point, then show up. Be there, because this can really drive the point that, oh, you came all the way here. Even if you have a simple point to make, if you actually go there, then the people will take it very seriously that, oh, you're here. You actually came here. You don't even have to say as much if you go there. If you descend from your exalted position, whatever it may be, and show up for the people wherever they are. I've seen very advanced devotees go and visit maybe new devotees in the brahmacharya ashram and sit down on the floor with them and teach. Then it makes such an impression. They may go to the class and see this person sitting on a high seat, which is completely correct and also a way to learn. But when that person walks through the entire campus, goes to somebody's room, and then sits down on the floor with them and says, I just really want to talk to you, like this. And this is what Brahma's doing. He's coming a long way. Satyaloka is a long way away. And he comes all the way there, and he sits directly with Priyavrata. And this gives a big impression. So this is one of the ways of teaching Krishna consciousness effectively. Be there for people. Go out of your way. Go to their house. Go show up at their son's wedding or whatever it may be. be there, and then you'll be effective. That Lord Brahma descended from Satyaloka to see a Priyavrata indicates that the matter was very serious. Narada Muni had come to advise Priyavrata about the value of spiritual life, knowledge, renunciation, and bhakti, and Lord Brahma knew that Narada's instructions were very impressive. Therefore, unless Lord Brahma personally went to Gandhamadana hill to request Priyavrata, Lord Brahma knew that Prince Priyavrata would not accept his father's order. Brahma's purpose was to break Priyavrata's determination. Therefore, Brahma first looked upon Priyavrata with compassion. His smile and compassionate features also indicated that although Brahma would request Priyavrata to accept household life, Priyavrata would not be out of touch with devotional service. By the blessings of a Vaishnava, everything is possible. This is described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as Kripa Siddhi, or perfection attained simply by the blessings of a superior person. One usually becomes liberated and perfect by executing the regulative principles set down in the Shastras. Nonetheless, many persons have achieved perfection simply by the blessings of a spiritual master or superior. Priyavrata was the grandson of Lord Brahma, and as joking competition sometimes takes place between grandson and grandfather, in this case also Priyavrata was determined to remain in meditation, whereas Brahma was determined that he rule the universe. Thus Lord Brahma's affectionate smile and glance meant, "My dear Priyavrata, you have decided not to accept household life, but I have decided to convince you that you must accept it." Actually, Brahma had come to praise Priyavrata for his high standard of renunciation, austerity, penance, and devotion, so that he would not be deviated from devotional service, even though he would accept household life. In this verse, one important word is Sukta Vakena by Vedic hymns. In the Vedas, there is the following prayer to Lord Brahma: Hiranyagarbha samavartatagre bhutasya jata patir ek asit. Brahma was received with the appropriate Vedic hymns, and because he was welcomed according to the Vedic etiquette, he was very pleased. So, several lessons here about the compassionate smile and the way in which Brahma was sitting with Priyavrata and appreciating him and what he was trying to do, what he was already doing. But then he was bringing him a higher instruction, because ultimately it was coming from Krishna. It was Krishna's desire. So when one teaches to others, one should, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Atma samyena sarvatra samam pashati Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukam asa yogi paramo mataha. He said the highest yogi is the one who teaches with compassion. When seeing other people, he sees himself. He sees, I've been through all this. I know what it is. And also, he doesn't feel himself to be superior. He only feels, but only because of the grace of God, I'm in this situation and others are not, because they haven't been given the opportunity yet. But he doesn't feel himself to be morally or spiritually superior, although he is, because of the mercy of the Lord and his devotees. There's a way in which he doesn't feel himself to be so. And people feel that. It's a very important way to teach, is to have empathy. Atma paum yena sarvatra. This is what Krishna says. You should empathize with people. So empathetic teaching from the heart, understanding people's situation and relating to it very deeply, the way Brahma was relating to the situation of Priyavrata very deeply, moves people in a way that is not calculable through various ways of communicating and so forth. It's an intangible. But it is the essence, really, of the way in which one may inculcate Krishna consciousness in others, compassion. And affection also. He was affectionate, he was compassionate. And his countenance showed that. As he smiled, Priyavrata obviously could see in this context that that was his mood. So that mood is very important. So then the 11th verse talks about what I mentioned before. This 11th verse says, this is 5.1.11, Lord Brahma, the Supreme Person within this universe, said, "My dear Priyavrata, kindly hear attentively what I shall say to you. Do not be jealous of the Supreme Lord who is beyond our experimental measurements. All of us, including Lord Shiva, your father, and the great sage Maharshi Narada, must carry out the order of the Supreme. We cannot deviate from his order." So in the purport, Prabhupada writes in the second paragraph, when Brahma went to induce Priyavrata to accept the responsibility for ruling the universe, he did not go whimsically. He was following the dictations of the Supreme Lord. Indeed, Brahma and other genuine authorities never do anything without permission. And later on, in that same paragraph, he writes, Lord Brahma, therefore, had not come to Priyavrata by his own whims. Rather, it is understood that he had been ordered to persuade Priyavrata by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose activities cannot be understood by material senses, and who is therefore described herein as aprameya. Thus, Lord Brahma first advised Priyavrata to hear his words with attention and without envy, aprameya. So, this is another vital aspect of teaching Krishna consciousness. And that is that one should align one's message with Krishna's message. Find out for oneself what Krishna is actually teaching. And find out through disciplic succession how it's taught. And then with knowledge that one is following the mood and method of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the previous acharyas teach. Because from that position, one will have full confidence. First, have full confidence in the method of acquiring knowledge. This is brought out by Jiva Goswami in his Tattva Sandarbha. How do you know it's authoritative? You should clearly understand how knowledge is received in a perfect way. For instance, Jiva Goswami points out that from the various ways in which one can acquire knowledge from one's environment, getting through the senses or by inference or through logical deduction, one may fall short. The senses are limited. They can't see everything. And by logical deduction, he says one may come to the conclusion that there's a fire because there's a saying that wherever there's smoke, there's fire, right? So he sees smoke lingering above the mountain and says there must be a fire. However, the fire might have gone out and the smoke might have lingered. So there may be smoke without a fire, and therefore one's mistaken. So there are various ways in which he eliminates inferior means of getting knowledge and then points out the superior way, which is Shruti Pramanam, hearing from perfect authority. And one has to have this framework in order to be fully convinced of the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. That although I may not completely understand the scope of everything that's being presented or the details of the information, I heartily accept the source of the information and therefore go on teaching it. And this was Brahma's conviction when he came to Priyavrata. He knew that it was the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because Brahma communicates directly with the Supreme Lord who ordered him to do so. He speaks to him through the heart. Teni Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye. And so this is an important way in which to have effectiveness in one's teaching is to be perfectly aligned. That means knowing the system of knowledge and finding out how it's a perfect source. A Purusheya, it's not coming from an ordinary person. And then reconciling that with one's doubts. Once one's own doubts are removed by hearing and having conversations with superior devotees, that is, those who have understood and seen, they're tattvavit, they've seen the truth, then one's doubts can be removed, and then one can present Krishna consciousness in a highly effective manner. This is when it becomes extremely effective, preaching, teaching Krishna consciousness. So this is the case with Brahma in this verse, 5.1.11. Everyone okay? Avanta, you okay? Her fingers are still attached. There's no smoke coming out. 5.1.12, one must use one's intelligence to understand and apply the orders of the Supreme Lord. This is an amazing verse. And this 5.1.12, we're going to read. One cannot avoid the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not by the strength of severe austerities and exalted Vedic education, or the power of mystic yoga, physical prowess, or intellectual activities. Nor can one use his power of religion, his material opulence, or any other means, either by himself or with the help of others, to defy the orders of the Supreme Lord. That is not possible for any living being, from Brahma down to the ant. Purport. In the Garga Upanishad, which Upanishad? Which one? I'm not convinced. Which one? Work with me now. Garga Muni says to his wife, Etasya va aksharasya prashasane gargi surya chandramasau vidritau tishtataha. My dear Gargi. My dear who? Gargi. Everything is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the sun, the moon, and other controllers and demigods like Lord Brahma and King Indra are all under his control. An ordinary human being or animal who has accepted a material body cannot go beyond the jurisdiction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's control. A material body includes senses. However, the sense activities of so-called scientists who try to be free from God's law or the laws of nature are useless. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.14. Mama maya duratyaya. It is impossible to surpass the control of material nature, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is working behind it. Sometimes we are proud of our austerities, penances, and mystic yoga powers. But it is clearly stated herein that one cannot surpass the laws of and directions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, either by dint of mystic power, a scientific education, or austerities and penances. It is impossible. The word manishaya, by intelligence, is of special significance. Priyavrata might argue that Lord Brahma was requesting him to accept family life and the responsibility for ruling a kingdom, although Narada Muni had advised him not to enter household life and be entangled in material affairs. This is usually how these things happen. It's never so simple that it's like, oh, it's just like that. Okay, you get two things at once. Whom to accept would be a puzzle for Priyavrata, because both Lord Brahma and Narada Muni are authorities. Under the circumstances, the use of the word manishaya is very appropriate, for it indicates that since both Narada Muni and Lord Brahma are authorized to give instruction, Priyavrata should neglect neither of them, but should use his intelligence to follow the advice of both. To solve such dilemmas, Srila Rupa Goswami has given a very clear conception of intelligence. He says, Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjita nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchete. What is this verse an example of? What does it represent? What does it define? It defines spiritual intelligence. We've found this also in the 4th canto. Prabhupada says, spiritual intelligence is epitomized by this verse, or this verse defines spiritual intelligence. That is, how to use whatever you have whatever situation, whatever possessions in Krishna's service has to be connected. To not to use one's senses, because you have senses, you have to use them in Krishna's service. Vishayan, material affairs, should be accepted without attachment, and everything should be dovetailed with the service of the Lord. That is real intelligence. Manisha. Becoming a family man or king in the material world is not harmful if one accepts everything for Krishna's service. That necessitates clear intelligence. Mayavadi philosophers say, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mitta. This material world is false, and only the absolute truth is real. However, an intelligent devotee in the line of Lord Brahma and the great sage Narada, or in other words, in the Brahma Sampradaya, does not consider this world false. That which is created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be false, but using it for enjoyment is. Everything is meant to be enjoyed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvalokam Maheshwaram. The Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, is the supreme proprietor and enjoyer, and therefore everything should be dovetailed for his enjoyment and service. Regardless of one's circumstances, favorable or unfavorable, one should use everything to serve the Supreme Lord. That is the perfect way to use one's intelligence. So, Brahma is completely aligned with the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and now he's able to ask Priyavrata to do something which seems counter to Priyavrata's intentions and the instructions he's getting from Narada Muni. And we can discuss a little bit this point, which comes through this pastime of the way in which one neglects neither order. If both are authorized and are coming from authorized authority, how does one do that? There's another example of this when Arjuna is faced with killing Ashvatthama. Because he had promised to do so after Ashvatthama had killed the sleeping sons of the Pandavas, and then he was captured. He had promised Draupadi that you can take your bath standing on his head after I sever it from his body. And when he finally captured him, that is, Arjuna captured Ashvatthama, and was in a position to execute him, Draupadi changed her mind. She said, I don't want his mother to feel the way I feel now. She had compassion. Bhima, on the other hand, said, he's a rascal, kill him right away. And there were these two sides that developed, both from pure authorities. Krishna was there. Arjuna looked at Krishna, and Krishna expressed through his expression, through his countenance, that you decide. So Arjuna used spiritual intelligence, and he decided that there's no injunction for killing the body of a Brahmin. However, he must be punished. So I'll cut the jewel from his head that designates him as a Brahmin in society. So essentially he'll be killed, but I'll have avoided the injunction of not killing a Brahmin. So he neglected neither Draupadi nor a Bhima Sena in carrying out his activity. This, as I said earlier, is generally the way situations appear to us. There are two sides that are equally reasonable according to Shastra and authorized as well. So what do you do then? Discuss. Any points? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. There was another instance of the same thing in the Mahabharata when Jayadratha tried to kidnap Draupadi, and then eventually the Pandavas caught them and brought him back, and Bhima wanted to kill Jayadratha, on spot. But Arjuna said, let's go talk to Yudhishthira first. And Yudhishthira said, because he's our cousin, because he's married to the sister of Duryodhana, we should not kill him. And Arjuna, with his spiritual intelligence, decided to just shave off his hair and leave it just 5 tufts.
Very good. Proves the prevalence of these kinds of situations in which you have to find a situation that satisfies both. Yes?
I had a question, Prabhu.
Yeah.
About the...
Hold that right close to your mouth.
It talks about spiritual intelligence. Many times we may not be we are faced with their situations, and we may not be having the association or the immediate guidance of superiors to use it. And how does one decide actually? It's not yet developed, spiritual intelligence is not that much of developed that we can...
Well, one basic rule is throughout one's life, even when you don't have immediate mentorship, which I do recommend that you develop. This is one of the points I made the other night that I took from Devamrita Swami, then that is that Gaudiya Vaishnavism is a culture of guidance. We take guidance readily on all sides and as much as possible from the right kinds of devotees. So have that framework in your life. And this will help you avoid these kinds of course, you can never avoid these kinds of circumstances, but at least you'll have confidence that when they do arise, that you'll have the right people to talk to so you can help overcome them. However, if you don't, there are basic principles in play, always. And this word, what is it, manishaya? Manishaya. Is that you have to be thoughtful about it. Devotees are thoughtful. This is mentioned in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Atashchadadhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pasyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shuta grihitaya. It's mentioned in this verse that devotees have to have jnana and vairagya, or these are supporting features that help us to move forward in our bhakti. And one should also be thoughtful. Manishaya. One should have this way of not acting rashly, but taking time to consider the circumstances and what's best for what? For one's service. This is what anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjita means. That how will this affect my service? In the most positive way or in the most negative way? And as one goes through various circumstances in life, if one applies this test, for instance, someone might move to a new place and say, okay, I can get a much bigger, fancier house and make more money if I live in this place, but I won't be able to come to the temple. But if I live here, I'll have a smaller place and I won't earn as much money, but I'll get association of devotees on a regular basis. Then one might think about it very carefully. And then other things might enter in. It's like, well, I'll use the money to spread Krishna consciousness. Or my house is there, so people will come there and they'll stay in my house. It's not always so simple, but back and forth. You should be thoughtful and think and pray. And then come to a conclusion based on whether it's right or wrong at the time, sincerely what's best for my service. And if you do that, even if you make the wrong choice, Krishna will make it right. Because you try to do it for his service. So what's the way in which I can do the most service? Someone might say, well, this is an obvious example with Priyavrata. They needed him to do service. He was so qualified to do things for the universe. He could have been a renunciate, and that's an equally valid instruction that he was getting from Narada. And so, how did he decide? Anasaktasya vishayan. What's best for my service? And it's coming through authority. So, you have to sincerely try to figure out how it will impact your service and do what's best for increasing your service in order to make such decisions. What else? Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, please go ahead.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Pandit Srivastava from Cincinnati, Prabhu.
There he is, Pandit Srivastava Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. I really like the point that it almost made some sense of a spiritual intervention of sorts. And every now and then I was just reflecting on, things that have happened in either my life or the people I've known. And every now and then the spiritual interventions have really helped. That someone's come in, or a flock of devotees or senior disciples of the Guru Maharaj has come in and said that, hey, let's sit down, let's talk, let's figure out what your options are over here from a spiritual standpoint and help you make those decisions. So that was one point I wanted to make. And the other thing was, Ananta Tirtha Prabhu's wife's name is Radha Sundari Mataji.
Oh,
So
yes.
that was...
I've watched them in one of Radhanath Swami's classes, and they would tag team, typing as fast as they could, and they pass the computer over, and then the other one would go. Of course, we have Avantika. Thank you very much. Very insightful points. Yeah, we should welcome these kinds of interventions when they come unsought and they come from those who are spiritually advanced. One can take them as coming from Krishna or one's spiritual master. And they're very helpful in moving forward in spiritual life because they come with such force. And this is definitely an intervention. In fact, it's mentioned in the beginning of this pastime that there are ways in which one's particular plan for devotional service can be interrupted. Sometimes people are interrupted by sense gratification, and other times they're interrupted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, because he has his own idea about how you should move forward in life. Prabhupada mentions in his own circumstances how he had his plan. Prabhupada had a plan to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. It included becoming very wealthy through his businesses and then using the money to expand Krishna consciousness. But then he said Krishna dismantled everything. And he said, I guess he wanted me to come to America completely broke, and it gave him. Anyway, he accepted it as Krishna's arrangement. And yes, both these things, these interventions are very important. In fact, even if it's not a huge assembly of devotees, if somebody comes to you unsought and offers you some advice, if you consider the stature of such a person. Of course, one who's very attuned to the environment and is Manishaya, who's very carefully thinking about things, might take such an instruction even from someone who's not a devotee. Prabhupada, when he was printing his magazine, met a person who wasn't particularly, a Vaishnava or Gaudiya Vaishnava or anything, said, oh, you should make books. You're doing this magazine, it'll be more permanent. Probably that's coming from Krishna, I should print books. And as one's considering very carefully how to move forward in one's devotional service, one may get signs from one's environment, and wisdom may be spoken through various people who either chastise or give in some instruction that triangulate. Then one may triangulate and find, oh yes, this has stimulated me to actually do the right thing. Yes.
One devotee just this week was telling me his name is Naveen Prabhu, and he got education in Krishna House in East Coast, and he was telling that how His Grace Kalakant Prabhu was just visiting, I think few months ago here in Bay Area, and then he made a point to meet his students, not only here in LA, like wherever he could get that. And I was just deeply touched that how such a senior devotee making point to go to his previous students and giving that association what you were mentioning in the today's reading of how Brahma came down personally to show the seriousness.
Yes, yeah. I was in Washington D.C. in 1976, and I was going every day to distribute books at the airport. And my two colleagues were Pragosh Prabhu, not the GBC Pragosh, he's Prabhupada's disciple, lives in New York, and Subhuti Roy Prabhu, also Prabhupada's disciple, obviously. And I had a habit of staying out longer than the other devotees. I'd always take a cab home because I wanted an extra hour or so to try to get ahead. And that was a mistake one night because Prabhupada was staying there and Subhuti Roy and Pragosh came home in the van and Prabhupada asked Hari Sari from his cabin, said, who is that? Who are they getting out of the van? And Prabhupada told him, oh, they're book distributors. They came from the airport. So Prabhupada invited them to come in. And he sat them down and asked them questions about the book distribution. What are you telling people? What are they saying? And he gave them some mango ice cream and sent them to bed. I just got a letter from Subhuti Roy Prabhu after 35 years. And he gave some very sweet kind of recollection of that and was saying how, he was saying, I know Prabhupada is, through your service, he'll be giving you ice cream, your ice cream. But my point was that he invited them in. They were foot soldiers. They weren't big leaders or something like that. But he invited them in, sat them down, personally fed them ice cream, and related to them in that way. And this is something that they kept with them for the rest of their life. It took Prabhupada maybe 10 minutes. But then these devotees were permanently affected. Not only that, you'll hear, if you listen carefully, and you should, to all of Prabhupada's recordings. They're available from the archives. And you can go through every one. Make it a plan 1 year to listen to everything Prabhupada ever said that's recorded. And go through systematically. And if you do that, you'll find that Prabhupada sat with a lot of people, and some of them were really nitwits. I mean, they were saying all kinds of stupid stuff, and Prabhupada was 90% of the time very patient with them and kept explaining to them the process of Krishna consciousness. He knew the importance of this proximity and taking time with people because that would bring out their potential and it'd make a lasting effect. So effective teachers of Krishna consciousness, they mix with people. They take time to go in their homes and sit down with them. They'll come back again and again and sit with them face to face. They'll go to functions with them and be with their families and their kids and things like that. It makes a big difference over time in how everything works out in the end. Malini.
The point that you mentioned about compassion that Lord Brahma had for Priyavrata, it really struck me because it's not that compassion that we have something and that they don't have, but we have been through the same situation as they have at certain point, and then sit down with humility and then talk to them. It was an eye opener for me because I didn't think of compassion in this way. It's very relevant to the service that we're doing.
Yeah, when we talk in our book distribution seminars about how to present, one of the slides is don't be condescending. Be there with people and appreciate that we're all under the influence of the material nature and so forth, and people can really relate to that. That's one of the ways in which in the Bhagavad Gita presentation, when we ask people, what's your secret? Some people think, oh, that sounds artificial or manipulative, but actually it's a way of appreciating that, hey, you're a living entity too. You're connected to Krishna. What's your thing? They may say something that's diluted because of the influence of the modes of material nature, but there's a living entity in there that has a history and is eternally connected to Krishna. And seeing like that, Krishna says, he says, in my opinion, that's the best yogi. That's beautiful, how Krishna says that. Atma pam yena sarvatra samam pashati yorjuna. Samam pashati. He sees the similarity of the person to himself. Sukham va yadiva dukham. He knows that they're all going through the same things, happiness and distress. Sa yogi, that yogi. Paramomata, that's the supreme yogi. That's the best yogi that has compassion. Teach with compassion. Really be there with people. And what did Prabhupada do? He came and lived with the people. Stayed in the same area where he was teaching. And that was one thing that we noticed in the movie Hare Krishna, that people noticed that it was Allen Ginsberg said, all the other swamis were going uptown because that's where the big bucks were. And Prabhupada went downtown where the downtrodden people were and where his message was resonating. Gandharvika, did you have a point? And then Hansapriya.
It's just notice that how when we hear, we should hear with attention and without envy. Because as you also said in our previous lecture, the only valuable asset that we have is attention. And that really caught me. And also another point that that I inferred from what you were saying is the intention. Like how it matters a lot, no matter how much we do. Because even if we do the wrong thing, but we have the right intention, but we get carried away,
Yes.
Krishna makes it right.
Yes.
So I really pray that by the association of devotees, we are constantly able to keep our intentions correct.
Yes.
By hearing. So
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
Very nice. Those are, you could write a book about what you just said. It was so good. Okay, I have a few more points to make, if I may. And I have to keep Avantika moving here. Okay, let's see. Number 13, verse number 13. My dear Priyavrata, by the order of the Supreme... Oh, I forgot. Hansapriya, I'm sorry. Get her the mic quick.
So the devotee's intervention, it reminded me one incident that happened in 2006-07. That devotee didn't come to this Bhagavatam class and you noticed that he wasn't there. So you actually drove down to his home to look for him. And I remember that incident, and the devotee doesn't come around anymore, but I remember how you came in person to check on him, to see what's happening, where is he at, and all that. But I remember even now today that your taste, the compassion and how focused you were. So even though I know you didn't have a time, but you drove down, and it just reminded me today how you talk about the taste and time. That the taste. If I hang out with a person who has that kind of taste, I can be also focused. So thank you for reminding me that.
Thank you for reminding me of that. But I still don't recall the incident. But it sounds like I maybe did one thing right in my life. In this verse 13, Priyavrata. Yeah, if you show up at somebody's door, Nirkula talks about how when she was in Los Angeles, a new devotee, and she got discouraged by something that happened, and she thought, I just won't come to the temple. And a couple days later, this Mataji showed up at the door with a plate of Mahaprasadam and said, "You okay? Here's some Maha." And she said to this day, it impacts her thinking about that. She feels indebted to that person to this day for saving her devotional life. And this kind of outreach, that where you're thinking about, how to help somebody come forward in Krishna consciousness, just a little encouragement, a little Mahaprasadam can change everything. This is what real devotional communities are made of. Dadati pratigunati guyamakyati prichati punkte bojayate chaiva shadvidam pratilakshanam. Rupa Goswami said this is the foundation on which Krishna consciousness operates, is through these very thoughtful, loving exchanges. That's where Krishna consciousness can be really taught, in that environment. So in this verse, 13, actually 13 through 17, now, although there's been some compassionate exchanges, there's all the entourage there with Brahma. Now, another requisite is Sambandha Gyan. He's speaking pure philosophy here, and he's telling Priyavrata about the way we relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the way the world works. So just as a taste, the verse says, "My dear Priyavrata, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities accept different types of bodies for birth and death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear of future dangers, and happiness and distress." Prabhupada writes at the end of this purport, The truth is that every living entity has a certain desire, and the Supreme Lord gives him a chance to fulfill it. The best course, therefore, is to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of God and enact according to his desire. One who does so is liberated. So I'm offering this as another element of effective teaching of Krishna consciousness, and that is to give a clear and basic Sambandha Gyan. And because it's so true that we have this dependent relationship on the Supreme Personality of God, Nityo Nityanam. We are dependent on the Supreme Eternal. I heard Prabhupada speaking in a lecture this morning from 1966, and he was saying that atheistic people are not logical. He said an atheist will vehemently oppose God. And Prabhupada said, where have you gotten such power to vehemently oppose God? Where does your power come from? And he was referring to even the power of speech. Where is your power of speech? It could be withdrawn at any moment. Doesn't that give you a clear indication of Nityo Nityanam? This is very basic and logical Sambandha Gyan. And anyone can appreciate it. I've found this even in the midst of busy airports like O'Hare Airport. Oftentimes people would come back because they had purchased a book, and then somebody else they ran into who worked at the airport would say, oh, that's nonsense, you can't read it. You just got ripped off. Go get your money back. And they would come back and they'd say, can't read it, give me my money back. And just by saying a few things like, well, one thing is, you're not your body. You're actually a spiritual soul within the body. I always noticed that people would immediately calm down because it's so commonsensical. Even as we say to people when we're presenting a Bhagavad Gita, you look spiritual, they suddenly reconsider all the ways in which they were thinking about fleeing from you, and they, oh yeah, maybe I am spiritual. So Sambandha Gyan has a profound effect on living entities because it's about them and what their real existential situation is. And so in any presentation of Krishna consciousness, if one can give some well-reasoned, clear, meaningful presentation of that person's relationship with this world, which is that we really don't have one, we're just passing through, it's temporary, you can die at any time. People forget that. When I brought the Changing Bodies exhibit to Salesforce before I left for India, I just walked through the lobby. Everyone was, it was a showstopper. Everyone's going to busy, very important meetings, going back to very important projects at Salesforce, because they're going to rule the world pretty soon. Salesforce, they're so powerful. And then when they just saw this simple display of the baby going all the way to the grave and all the various points in between. This is Sambandha Gyan presented in a little statue, and I'm just walking through the lobby with it, and people, what? Wait a minute. Hey, Larry, get over here. You got to see this. What is it? Oh, my God. I get in the elevator. There's 15 people in the elevator. They're like, oh, my God. What is it? And I said, it's reality. And I go, this Sambandha Gyan is so important. People don't hear it anywhere. They don't hear it at the New York Times. They don't hear it at the Los Angeles Times. They definitely don't hear it on CNN or Fox News. They don't hear it anywhere. They don't hear it on AM or FM radio. They don't read it in books. They read all kinds of books, but they don't get nice, clean, clear, crisp Sambandha Gyan. That's all in Bhagavad Gita. And you could take a little bit and extract it and realize it yourself and then present it to people. For instance, there's a verse that caught my attention a long time ago that drives me wild. It's such a beautiful verse. Asango Hyayam Purushaha. Prabhupada quotes it all the time throughout his purports. He said it's from the Vedas. Asango Hyayam Purushaha means living entity, you have nothing to do with the material world. You have no association here. You have no connection with this place. That's profound. Think about it for a minute. You don't belong here. Hey, that solves a lot of problems right there. It's so simple and direct. But who gets to hear it? Only those who come in contact with those who are reading Bhagavad Gita and realizing it. And that's the great need in the world. Everything else is just complete noise. Noise, noise, noise. People are talking senators and congressmen and mayors and governors. They're all talking jobs, jobs, jobs. That's what they talk about all the time in the so-called capitalistic society. That's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. What kind of jobs? Why are you working in the job? What are you going to get from your job? What are you going to attain at the end of your job? They don't know. They don't care. They just want to keep working like mudhas. But when someone comes along and says, excuse me, 1 second, sit up for a second, asango hyayam purusha, you have nothing to do with the material world. What? Why didn't anybody tell me this before? This is actual preaching. Just to give this clear sambandha gyan. And this is Brahma, he's talking to Priyavrata. But still, it's an element that's very important. And if you add it in any of your presentations, commonsensical, clear knowledge that you're not your body. Because everyone's guilty, to some degree or another, of this mass consensual trance, as Evamrita Swami puts it. Why are you agreeing to this complete fake out of the material world? Everybody knows it's a fake out. Everybody knows when you cut, you bleed. There's nothing in the material body that's attractive. Why are you agreeing to this farce? A ruse. It's a ruse. Well, I'm just going along because everybody else said. Don't do it. So this is one of the important elements of Brahma's speech. And now I want to read you something that will astound you beyond compare. The likes of which you may have never heard before, even though you've read it. Hearing it in this context will stimulate in you some special knowledge that will move you forward in Krishna consciousness. 5.1.16, are you ready? Yes. Not really. I'm not going to. Okay. Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. Without misconceptions, however, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to that karma the way an awakened person regards a dream he had while sleeping. He thus remains steadfast and never works to achieve another material body under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Was that good? Say yes. Yes. Now wait till you hear the purport. But we don't have time, right? I'm just seeing how eager you are. We don't have time, right? It's taste, not time. Purport. The difference between a liberated and a conditioned soul is that the conditioned soul is under the concept of bodily life, whereas a liberated person knows that he is not the body but a spirit, different from the body. Priyavrata might have thought that although a conditioned soul is forced to act according to the laws of nature, why should he, who was so far advanced in spiritual understanding, accept the same kind of bondage and impediments to spiritual advancement? To answer this doubt, Lord Brahma informed him that even those who are liberated do not resent accepting in the present body the results of their past activities. And that sentence is such a concise and profound way to summarize Tate Anukampam Samikshamanam. I'm going to say it again, and if I ever get a tattoo, I'm going to have that put on my arm. You never know, midlife crisis. Or to answer this doubt, Lord Brahma informed him that even those who are liberated do not resent accepting in the present body the results of their past activities. While sleeping, one dreams many unreal things, but when he awakens, he disregards them and makes progress in factual life. Similarly, a liberated person, one who has completely understood that he is not the body but a spirit soul, disregards past activities performed in ignorance and performs his present activities in such a way that they produce no reactions. This is described in Bhagavad Gita. Jagnartat karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana. If one performs activities for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality, the Yajna Purusha, his work does not produce reactions, whereas karmis who act for themselves are bound by the reactions of their work. A liberated person, therefore, does not think about whatever he has ignorantly done in the past, Instead, he acts in such a way that he will not produce another body by fruit of activities. As clearly mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitai tan pramabhuya yakalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Regardless of what we have done in our past lives, if we engage ourselves in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord in this life, we'll always be situated in the Brahmabhuta, liberated state, free from reactions, and will not be obliged to accept another body. Tyaktva punar janma naiti mameti sorjana. After giving up the body, one has to act. One who has acted in that way does not accept another material body, but instead goes back home, back to Godhead. What is your opinion? Did you like it? Did you like it too much? Yes. Okay. All right, a couple more points, even though our time is dwindling. Next in 5.1.18. 5.1.18. One who is situated in household life and who systematically conquers his mind and 5 sense organs is like a king in his fortress who conquers his powerful enemies. One who has been trained in household life and his lusty desires have decreased, he can move forward anywhere without danger. So, first point is that just in general about interacting with the material world. Avidyam cha vidyam chayas tadvedo bayam saha avidyaya mritum tirtva vidyaya mritamashnute. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and thus enjoy the full blessings of, kids are supposed to memorize the Shir Upanishad before the end of this year, of immortality. So, how do you enjoy the full blessings of immortality? Side by side, seeing the juxtaposition of material and spiritual. And when one's mixing it up in the material world and at the same time cultivating Krishna consciousness, he may get an even more profound realization because he sees very clearly the difference. And also, the material world has a kind of very educational feature to it, and that is if you touch the wrong things, it reacts in such a way that you get immediate or extended information about what not to do next time. As Hridayananda Maharaj likes to say, cosmic sensitivity training. So imagine yourself in a special house where there's certain things you're not supposed to touch, or whatever you touch, bah! So if you are experiencing that along with getting the Sambandha Gyan, then you get profound realization. Now, my other point related to teaching Krishna consciousness is that here Brahma, in his presentation, includes some very practical information for Priyavrata. He tells him how actually taking up the process of grihastha life, even though you're renunciate at heart, can actually help you. And he teaches him how it's practical, how that can actually elevate him in Krishna consciousness. So practical instruction, showing a person examples in daily life, how one could actually be benefited, is a way in which one can be successful in teaching Krishna consciousness. I found in 5.1.21, this point is made also that although Narada was his spiritual master, he had been teaching Priyavrata to renounce after Brahma came and made his points, which convinced Priyavrata. And Priyavrata agreed to Brahma's proposal. Narada was not resentful. He also smiled and appreciated because it was all done properly, and it was all done according to authority. And if that's the case, then we should appreciate whatever the outcome is, even if it doesn't go exactly according to our point of view. He wasn't resentful. of 5.122. Swayambhuva Manu, with the assistance of Lord Brahma, thus fulfilled his desires. With the permission of the great sage Narada, he delivered to his son the governmental responsibility for maintaining and protecting all the planets of the universe. He thus achieved relief from the most dangerous, poisonous ocean of material existence. That's the completion of that section. Swayambhuva Manu took help from Brahma, and Brahma, in concert with Swayambhuva, employed all these ways in which one can be effective in teaching Krishna consciousness. So, a few reflections about the practical points of inculcating Krishna consciousness in the lives of others, thus beginning their propitious practice of Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I like the point, I think it was like 5:16 or, no, 5:11, where it said that in the purport that by the mercy of a Vaishnava, anything is possible.
Yes, this is a very important point. By the mercy of Vaishnava, anything is possible. Naisam matistavara rukramangrin spisharchanarta pagamodyarartaha mahiyasam pararajobhishekam niskinchananam navranita yavat. There are many verses that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives to Sanatana Goswami, one of them I just quoted, in which it is mentioned that unless you take the dust from the lotus feet of a Vaishnava and smear it on your body, you won't be successful. No matter what you do, no matter how expert you are at various aspects of Vedic culture and so forth, you have to get the mercy of a Vaishnava. And this is also mentioned in Yasya Devi Parabhaktir Yata Devi Tatagaro Tasyaite Katitah Yarta Prakashanti Mahatmanaha. This principle that Krishna teaches us in the Gita to approach humbly a person of knowledge and to accept a spiritual master, one who has implicit faith in the principle of the spiritual master and in the spiritual master and in the Vedas, Yasya Devi, and in Krishna and the spiritual master simultaneously, and in the system that's in the way it's presented, will have full realization of the Vedic conclusion. Otherwise, you can miss it. There's an element there that is not intellectual. It has to do with your faith and loyalty in your spiritual master. If you abandon your spiritual master because you think, I'll do it some other way, somebody left Prabhupada and said, I want your blessings to find another guru. And Prabhupada mentioned in his class afterwards, he said, then why is he asking me? If he's rejecting But that principle is there throughout the Vedic teachings of accepting the spiritual master and therefore pleasing Krishna and being able to imbibe spiritual knowledge. Yes?
Thank you, Maharaj, for sharing so many points. I just written in summary. First thing you told about no excuse. Second, you mentioned about how consciously
She's getting it all. Okay, go ahead.
How consciously he raised the question even so that he doesn't divert it. And like he was so consciously asked the question, and then
what?
third,
conscientious. Yeah, so if you're approached by a superior and you're given information or an order that doesn't quite sit well, you can talk about it. But you should do it conscientiously if you have some doubt. Yes.
Then third, you told go in group, like how Brahma came with his associates and personified Vedas.
Yeah, Tamal Krishna Maharaj lost Prabhupada's key and Prabhupada said, call the GBC.
For so personally, like how Brahma came all the way down from his abode, so he was personally showed up to resolve the issue. Sometimes we have to give our personal association. Then full confidence in source of knowledge and following the previous acharyas, Acharya Pashanam. And then Manishina, we need the intelligence to apply. And what is that intelligence is anasaktasya vishayan yathaharam upinjita. That verse from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And then what is best for my service. That is the spiritual intelligence we should have. And 16, you told a very nice statement, even those who are liberated do not resent accepting in the present body the results of past activities. And in the last, you mentioned how Narada was not resentful, though he did not apparently, because everything was done properly, so he was not resentful.
Yeah, and I like what Pandit Srinivas Prabhu said from Cincinnati about appreciating divine intervention when it comes. People could consider themselves very fortunate when they get that kind of intervention in their lives. Comes without asking for it. This is the sense of intervention. Something comes to you, you didn't ask for it. They just intervened. We do that. That's what preaching means, actually. We're really intervening in people's lives. They didn't ask us to come out public. In fact, a lot of times people ask us not to. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked his followers to go out and say, now take it out on the street, what I just showed you here for a year. So they went out on the street and people said, could you not do that here? And they said, not so loud. In fact, and they're like, all right, call the cops. Happens all the time. And it's been happening when Prabhupada started his movement, people started calling the police. Devotees were getting arrested in various places all over the world. One of my best friends, Divyanga Prabhu, he went for a permit somewhere, and afterwards they gave him the permit, so he didn't have any felonies on his record. But they said, Mr. McCready, I just have one question. How is it possible for one person to get arrested 52 times? It was a court case at the Cleveland airport that was very important to our overall ability to use our First Amendment rights to sell books. So he was one of the guinea pigs who would go out and get arrested again and again to bring it, so it would bring it to court. Bhuvaneshwar Prabhu, the famous sadhu, devotee and cook in Vrindavan. Anybody know Bhuvaneshwar? Yeah. One of his great services was, because he wasn't like a huge book distributor, although he's been steady throughout his whole life and is seen as one of the great sadhus of ISKCON and one of the best cooks anywhere, and kirtan leader and so forth. He stays in Vrindavan. But he said in the early days in Los Angeles, they needed somebody to get arrested to get the court case going. Devotees used to go out all the time and get arrested, and because it was illegal what we were doing, selling books, until we won the court case. So they sent him out. They said, okay, your job's to get arrested. He said, I couldn't even do that right. It took me 2 weeks to get arrested. I said I was right there in front of the policeman and they didn't arrest me. I forgot my original point, but I was having so much fun. What? Whatever needs to be done? Is that what it came from? Intervening? Oh yeah, we go out and intervene. People tell us to go away. And oftentimes people are minding their own beeswax. They're reading some stupid novel and we come up and say, hey, how you doing? Hey, great book. Here, take a look at this. We're introducing something else, what we want them to read. Just like if you're in a household, with somebody and say, why are you doing that? Why don't you do this? That's what we do all the time. We go knock, knock, knock. What are you guys doing? Yeah, well, you should do this instead. Read these, here's 18 volumes, put them up. Take that stuff out, put this stuff in. That's an intervention. That's what preaching is. But there's ways to intervene that are better than others. And that's what we've talked about today. Inculcating Krishna consciousness through intervention, through coming through on the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but doing it with realization that and compassion, so that people can accept it in their lives and take it on, and that so we can make advancement. You've all given so many good points. Thank you very much. Just, you have another one. Good. Malini's got more.
Prabhuji, in the 5 and 18,
yes.
It said that the householder life, if they control their mind and senses, they can move anywhere without any danger. This also follows with the same point that you made last Wednesday about check the force of desire and anger. I was just thinking that staying in householder life, if we just do that part, which is the most important.
There's a really important verse in purport. We didn't read the whole purport, but everyone should read it and look at it and study it. One of the points is that if you can learn to be Krishna conscious in the householder environment, then later on you can become Krishna conscious everywhere. The Vedic system really is to go through the various stages of life. There's brahmacharya, then there's grihastha, then vanaprastha, then sannyas. Each one is enacted with through gradual steps. In fact, they're all gradual steps to come to the level of Paramahamsa, and that is to have full realization and love for Krishna. And this is all possible if one takes an incremental approach to one's life and deals with whatever worldly attachment one has now. You can't just dump them. They don't just, you go away and then they just leave. You have to deal with them appropriately by applying the principles of Krishna consciousness in your life as you need to live right now. Everyone needs a certain amount of sense gratification according to their psychophysiological nature. And if you try to take away too much or you give too much, it has to be balanced so that it's appropriate. But within that context, everyone can make advancement to the next stage and go to the highest position of life and become a Paramahamsa at the end. And you'll notice that even the stages of vanaprastha and sannyas are graduated. It's not that there's just stage from here to here. There's stages within stages that one must do. So there's taking the context of life one's in, and in this case mentioning grihastha life, and applying the principles of Krishna consciousness. Once one feels confident in that environment, then you'll be confident in all the other different environments. That you'll know how to utilize everything in Krishna service.
Maharaj, I have a question.
Yes.
So you said that one should not be discouraged in any position, in any situation of life. There is a way to progress. But how to, at the same time, we know the human form is so momentary. Means we don't know when is the last time, when is the last moment. I mean, it is so important. I mean, we don't know in the next birth, would I get the chance to have all this association and proceed in my life. How I put both these things together, that not be discouraged in my present situation and at the same time be very urgent, because I don't know how much time. Be
very what? Urgent?
Because I don't know how much time do I have.
One thing is about being discouraged. It's actually discouragement can be a great force or a catalyst for advancement. We find this even in the story of Pingala in the Bhagavatam. Krishna tells the story to Uddhava, and she became very discouraged, and that stimulated her to become more serious in Krishna consciousness. But I think your question is more about, okay, so if you realize that life is very urgent and you are eager to take full advantage of it, then why go through other stages? And why not take up that sense of urgency? Everyone's an individual. Everyone has an individual case. You can't stereotype anyone and say it has to be like this or like that. That's why there's so many helpful options within the Varnashram system. The Daivi Varnashram system allows one to live in such a way that one accommodates one's psychophysiological nature and at the same time goes on practicing Krishna consciousness. The main point, though, is Sadahari Bodhitako. Go on practicing Krishna consciousness, don't give it up. And Prabhupada brings this point up in Gajendra, because some people renounced, and who knows what their intentions were. Maybe their intentions were perfectly good, but then they couldn't maintain it. They were young, too. And Prabhupada was on an emergency mission. And then they gave it up. Then some of them thought, well, let me just commit suicide, or now I'm useless, now I can't do anything. And Prabhupada didn't teach like that. He said, no, find where you are, accommodated properly, and then go on with your Krishna consciousness with full strength and enthusiasm. So each person has to take, proper guidance and find out through being manishaya, thoughtful about what is the appropriate situation for me right now, so that I can be most readily engaged in service. There have been many cases of artificial renunciation. Within the course, a very short course of life in ISKCON since 1973, I've seen a lot of different and participated in artificial renunciations. I was with my godbrother Prem Kishore in Denver for a year, and we thought we were the 6 Goswamis. We thought we're going to eat once a day, we're going to sleep 4 hours a day, and we did a lot of far out stuff. And it was good, and I'm glad I did it, but it wasn't, I couldn't maintain it. And there's balance means you may be rocking back and forth, and you have to find like, balance doesn't mean you're perfectly still in every situation. It means you find your balance. So the world's a rocky place, and we're in an unstable environment. And you never know what's going to pop up from your past. So you have to take into consideration all of the different factors, and then assume a mode of responsibility in Krishna consciousness and a position that will best help you to move forward. And for some people, it's they have such full realization from previous experiences in their last life that they just go to one position or another. It's kind of natural. And there are different transitions in our lives as well. When you go through different ages, or I should say at the end of certain decades in your life, the decisions seem more imminent. For instance, when you're 10 going on 11, and then when you're 20 and turning 30, these are big junctures in your life, because then you think, well, I should take advantage, I should do this or make a decision now. So at each juncture of your life, you have to revisit where you are and what you need to do. Even renunciates have to think about where they are and how they're best applying their energies and so forth. It's not a one-time kind of decision. It's something that you have to do pretty much constantly. Anyway, last point from Radhakripa Prabhu, because we have to give Avantika a rest.
Maharaj, I like the point you mentioned that do what is best for my service and make decision based on that. Even if you make a wrong decision, Krishna will correct it.
Yeah, he'll make it right, because your intention was right. Gandharvika brought that up too. Now we want to hear from Avantika. What was it like trying to get everything down, and did you get everything down? I'm very curious about that. You have to hold it for her, because she has to write what she's saying even while she's... That's all right. Go ahead, tell us.
I actually understood the lecture a lot more, because I could see the words on paper. So it was almost like I was paying more attention, because I didn't get distracted because I was constantly writing.
Yeah. How much? What percentage-wise? How much do you think you got?
Maybe 80, 85.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. Really helped out. Okay, so now we're going to have a Guru Puja. We're going to worship His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, which is a way in which one may advance in Krishna consciousness by worshiping the Acharya. And then after that, we'll have prasadam for not only us, but for everybody in the entire county or the city. Anybody who wants to come can come here and have prasadam. So you can put it out on the internet, or you can call people and tell them, come down here and have prasadam, because we'll serve anybody at any time. Hare Krishna. Go Premanandi. And thank you for everyone who joined us online.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Vanchakalpaduruscha Kripasinabheva Chapatitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.